Hello. In this video we are going to take a look at the differences between the Korg wavestate and the Korg modwave. I'm using the wavestate native and the modwave native versions for this, but the hardware is exactly the same. There are a lot of similarities between the two versions. I would even say that it's around 70% the same, but there's a huge difference in the way the sounds are generated, and we are going to take a look at that. First, when we go to the synthesis tab on both synths, in the synthesis tab you see the same elements on both synths. We have the filter section. In the wavestate it's over here, and in the modwave it's over here. We have the pitch section, which is over here. The amplitude section, which is over here. And some LFO kind of things which you can find over here. So the synth modification section is more or less the same. Also the way the envelopes and LFOs works, and even the mod processors, key tracking, are the same in the lower area over here. And when you click on something like this, for instance amp, you will see that it's the same. So this is all these kind of things are the same in both synths. So when you know how to program a Korg wavestate or a Korg modwave, you can easily transfer that knowledge to the other version. But there's a huge difference in both synths. Let's get back to the main screen. When we look at the main screen, then we see that we have 2 layers on the Korg modwave, and that we have 4 layers on the Korg wavestate. So basically we can set up 4 different kind of sounds in the Korg wavestate, and in the modwave we create a sound with the help of 2 layers. Let me give an example from the Korg wavestate what you can do with 4 layers. Let's load up something like one of my own presets. Sirius, for instance. Okay. In this patch I use 3 layers. At first we have a sound in layer B, and that's called a wave sequence. And the wave sequence is basically a set of samples that you can listen to in a rhythmic way or in a crossfaded way. In this case it's a crossfaded sound. Let me disable the 2 layers, and let's hear only layer B. It starts with a power chord, and then it crossfades into a pad sound. It sounds like this. And you can loop it, or you can say to a cell, hey, stay on that cell. If you want to know how to program these kind of sounds, just check my wavestate tutorials, it's all explained in there. In layer A I've created an arpeggiator pattern, and I use a bass sound for that, and in the pitch lane I set that sequence pattern for that specific sound. So you hear the famous Sirius pattern, and in layer C I have set up a lead sound out of 2 samples. And then we can do so. Forgive the playing, I didn't practice it. In the modwave it's a different story. So basically on the Korg wavestate you set up your own sounds with the help of samples, which you can use rhythmically or in a crossfaded way to create your own sounds, but always based on samples. When we go to the Korg modwave, that's a different story. If I load up one of my own presets to explain it, yeah. I have a lot of sounds in both synths, but yeah, I'm looking for this one. What we have here, and let me disable layer B. You see here that we are using a wavetable, and the wavetable is basically a sample which consists out of a lot of waveform cycles. And you can isolate each cycle. And that makes it different. So in a normal subtractive synth you have an oscillator, and that is just one wave cycle which you use to program your sound on. In a wavetable you have a lot of them which you can select from. And then you can create your own sounds out of that. But you can also create movement in them. So when I start over here, so basically I'm playing it now and it runs through all those cycles to create that sound. And that makes a lot of things are possible this way. You can slow it down, you can position it anywhere in this element. Or slow it down. Or make it faster. So a lot of possibilities, and you can combine it with another oscillator and a sample, or also other wavetables, or a combination of wavetables. So then you get something like this. So lots of possibilities. Well, the rest is basically the same between those synths. The insert effects are the same. You have the prefix with the same insert effects. The mod effects are the same, and delays are the same. In the main effects you have the same reverb as the elements over here, and the EQ is also the same. So what it makes different is, well, this one uses wavetables and this one uses samples. So let me give an example when you program it yourself. Let's select one of my old presets. For instance, this one. This sound is created with wavetables that I created myself. Spectral resonance, an atonal fundamental sound, and a wavetable from the Matrix 12 that I created. Let me give an example of this. Here you can see what's happening in the sound. And it sounds like this. You hear all those elements now running through the filters and reverbs. Let's add the bass sounds. So a lot is going on in the sound. So that's basically a pad sound with wavetables that are wave cycles that are running through the wavetable and creating all that elements on top of it. So let's select a completely different sound from the modwave. Something like this Jup8 lead. So this one is based on a wavetable that I created from the Jup8 and from a sweep sound from the Juno 60. And you hear what's happening in the sounds when I hold the notes. It's a little bit dirty. And the fun part of this is that you can modify it any way you want. Let's get to layer A, and it has now a vintage 12 of it. We can, for instance, use a distortion on it. Now the sound is a little bit distorted, or soft clipping, which is basically an overdrive. Make it more dirty by adding, for instance, a wave shaper. Let's use a 2-cycle wave shaper. Remove the yellow. So it's really easy to modify the sounds to your liking. You can even do things like combining it with other wavetables, like for instance this. Let's get one of my own wavetables, a breathy. Oh, let's use a Calliope sound from the D50. When we are using this one, and let me disable the wave shaper. So we can modulate that, but we can also say, hey, let's use the velocity for that. So if I hit it harder, then it will use the D50 Calliope. So now it mixes those two wavetables together. So lots of possibilities. I can go on for hours with this, because when we really get into depth with this synth, we can spend, well, at least 20-30 hours with lots of tricks only on this, how to set this up. And we didn't even jump into the sequencers, the mod processors where you can create your own envelopes and LFOs. Lots to do. That's it for now. It's a small overview of both synths. So basically what we looked into, it's more or less the same for 70% in the synth. The main difference is that the modwave uses the wavetables and that the wavestate uses samples to build up the sound. Basically you have here 2 layers. Basically this is more a synth, and this is more it's also a synth, but based on a different technique, and it's more easier to create rhythmic things in this one, in the wavestate native, than it is in the modwave native. Although you can do things like a kick on oscillator 1 and a hi-hat on 2 and then offset them, and well, it is possible, but it's not easy to do. And in a wavestate native that is really easy to do. But the sonic sound palette in a modwave native is much more impressive than in a wavestate native, because basically you have the sample set you are working with, and here you are creating your own sounds out of wave cycles or combinations of wave cycles. So from a sound design perspective, I'm using the modwave a lot more than the wavestate native, but they both are really great and can do unique things that only the wavestate can do or only the modwave can do. So that's it for now, and hope to see you again when we are going to take a deep dive into the modwave native.